Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Charter Review Commission. We'll start off with personnel announcement, I guess. Amanda Hardigan has decided to step down from the committee. She just feels at this point she can't commit to the meetings on her schedule for the next few months and didn't feel it'd be fair to continue. So she has unfortunately decided that she's going to step down, which is a disappointment. I enjoyed her perspective and felt she brought a lot of knowledge to the group. So we appreciate everything she has done for the committee to this point. Means we have an opening and it is being posted, and we'll be meeting with Sean Riley in the upcoming weeks to find a fifth to fill in for the rest of the term.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? All right. So let's jump right into the agenda. We'll skip over the minutes for right now, if that's okay. I asked new Selectman Chairman Alex Haggerty to join us. One, just to introduce ourselves and to update him with what we're working on, hear his thoughts, and see how we can get moving on a couple of sticking points, which seems to be the budget timeline and the appointment process, which are two larger pieces that I think is becoming clear we need to address. So, Alex, if you want to come join us, please feel free. I don't want to make you stand at the podium necessarily. So, I don't know if you've had much of an opportunity to look over the list. I've been trying to keep a running list, I think it's on the website, of the issues we've been considering. It should be a list on the town website that anybody can look at that's fairly updated. But aside from any, off the top issues or questions you might have, we certainly have a couple we want to follow up on with you. So we'll stop there for now and see if there's anything that you want to know or say or.
Well, first off, thank you for inviting me to your commission. Thank you, and on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, thank you for the work that you continue to do. I know this has been a very long process and a very thorough process as well. So thank you for doing this. It's my understanding, the charter review is every 10 years, and it's always an extensive work. So thank you for doing what your part. A lot of big here for me tonight is just to hear what your thoughts are, what you guys are currently laying out. I actually am trying to pull up on my Selectman iPad here right now because I reviewed some of the recommendations that your commission has had. Speak as recommendations that I have specifically. I don't think it would be appropriate for me specifically to do that. As recently being the newly elected chair of the Board of Selectmen, I think it would also be a little inappropriate for me to speak for the board as a general. But I think moving forward that if this commission does want input from the Board of Selectmen as a collaborative, as a whole, I think that is something we could possibly do for us to have in our meetings, to have a public forum about what our thoughts are and recommendations. I know I had sent something to you last year about what different things that I thought about for the charter, but I think it's, now that I am the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I think it would be important to have a public discussion amongst my board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we received a list of ideas and thoughts from Board of Selectmen last year and considered them, and some of them were very kind of a little bit more abstract than others. We did request some follow-up information from the board, didn't hear much back, which is fine. And some of the issues we just didn't feel like would be appropriate to follow up with, but there certainly are some things that we do want to look at further. Two of them specifically are the process for the town budget, which I know is something that you've had questions about at previous meetings. This isn't inside baseball. This is something that's been very
Yes.
clear at Board of Selectmen meetings. And the other one is how the process for appointing people to openings on town committees, which again has been a point of contention in the past 2 to 3 years. So those are the ones I think we're particularly looking for some guidance on, because we can certainly make the decisions, but I don't think we necessarily should be foisting our own opinions on the board, especially if the board has thoughts as well. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to print this out, but I will send it to you.
Oh, I believe you just sent something to me, actually, hold on.
Yeah, this
let
is
me
a different document. This is about the
here.
current process for budget review,
see. Okay,
the
perfect.
current timeline. There was some question what the actual timeline is.
Right.
And how that works. Because frankly, kind of it's not being followed.
Right.
And that's fine if it doesn't work. If it doesn't make sense logistically, then let's change it. It's fine.
Yeah.
According to bylaws and charter, the town manager is supposed to submit to the Board of Selectmen 30 days prior to the date that he gives to the Finance Committee
Correct.
his budget for the year. So according to the bylaws, that date is January 15th. He is supposed to submit his budget to the Finance Committee, which means that he is supposed to give it to the Board of Selectmen about December 16th.
Correct.
I don't know if that's kind of how it currently works, but that's supposedly how it's supposed to work. And then the budget, there's a lot of language in here about what's supposed to be in the budget submission to selectmen. I don't want to necessarily go through all of it because it's lengthy. But it's supposed to be very thorough with, all expenditures, all revenues, everything. In addition, the town manager is also supposed to submit 6 months before the start of the fiscal year, a capital improvement plan to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So 6 months before the start of this fiscal year would be January 1st. So far we have, just to recover, December 16th, town manager submits the budget to the Board of Selectmen. January 1st, town manager submits the capital improvement program to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. January 15th, town manager submits the budget to the Finance Committee. And then the Finance Committee has, upon receipt, consider in public meetings detailed expenditures for each town department, agency that may require, et cetera, et cetera. That's after January 15th. And then 10 days before town meeting, the Finance Committee has to file with the town clerk is recommendations for action to be taken on each line item in the proposed operating budget. And then annually, there's also supposed to be a internal audit beyond just the budgetary audit, but also an audit of all property in town as well, which I thought was interesting. So, the problem that, as I understand it, is it's hard to put a budget together in December when the governor hasn't even filed their budget. What you're putting together then is basically a guess, and it's going to change significantly within 3 to 4 weeks when the governor finally submits his or her budget. And I think it's pretty understood that, whatever the town manager submits to the Finance Committee, it's going to change significantly in the coming
Correct.
weeks. But, it certainly seems, I don't know what the plan was 10 years ago, 20 years ago when this was written, but I mean, it's been the same format since then, which is that, until you know what your state aid number is,
Right.
you're kind of chasing a big hole.
Yeah.
So, this is what our town bylaws and town charter says how it's going to work. And I'd hate to have language in here that clearly doesn't work and nobody abides by, because then it kind of throws the whole point of having bylaws and charter into doubt. Like, why do you even have it if you're not going to follow it? So, I guess the theoretical practice, the question for the Board of Selectmen and the town manager is, all right, what should that timeline be? And I don't need an answer now, but that's kind of one of the
Well,
questions we
and this
have.
is one of the things before becoming chair, that, as you had mentioned before, this has been a discussion of mine for a while. because it's fluctuated about the timeline, whether this Board of Selectmen has been following it or not. As newly elected chair, my intention and responsibility is to make sure that this is followed through as written in the charter. So for this year, I can definitely say this is going to be the case. But I think it would be important to keep the timeline. Again, I am speaking as an individual, not as, not for the board completely, and this is, I think, why it'd be good to have the feedback from the board completely. Perhaps even if there was a written statement from us to you, to your commission, to say that this is our stance on this. So then it's not one member versus another.
Yeah, so I think what might make sense, and my fellow board members can chime in here, is if we say, by middle of August, early September, we would like some guidance in terms of what you think the process should be. Then that way, we can review it, make sure it's included, and then have it in the final packet that goes to town council. You know, it's not fair to say June or July, because that's just like dumping it on you, but, you know, clearly kind of what's in here might not make sense. And I'll say that I think on our end, we're also looking to change some of the language to make it clear that it's not budget update that's required, that it's a formal presentation that is given also to the town at some point by the town manager of, this is what's in the budget, these are the positions we're hiring, these are the positions we're cutting, these are the services that are changing, this is our challenges, et cetera, et cetera. So that it's not just, I gave you a report, I gave you a memo. It's, no, there's a formal budget presentation from the town manager at some point in this process. Is that,
That's right, that's what we've been talking about.
yeah,
And the other complicating factor is that part of this process is in one part of the bylaw, a charter.
Yeah.
And then part of it's in another part of the charter, so we're trying to get it all
right.
in one spot.
So, I think, and do you need an official letter from us, or would this be enough of a?
I think this would
Okay.
definitely be enough. Again, I appreciate being invited here to have this conversation with your commission. I think this is fantastic. So then I can bring this up for an agenda item at a future meeting. I can't do it for Monday.
Right.
But
Yeah.
hopefully on, let's say, June 12th or something like that. Definitely in the, not to give too much away, but in the future, we are going to be having meetings, agenda items specifically about what our role is in the budget process and putting out more information. And you know, everyone always knows this about me, is like setting priorities. What do the selectmen want to have as goals for the future? And that's part of what we do when we do the town manager review. So hopefully there will be a discussion, there will be a discussion at future meetings to discuss what the goals and priorities that we gave to our town manager and presented to the town.
Okay. And just to make it very clear, this is 100% not a critique of our town manager.
Right.
Yes,
Or how
correct.
this happens.
Right.
This
Oh,
is
absolutely.
just, you know, we're here to evaluate and go over bureaucratic process.
That's right.
And so this is a bureaucratic process that we feel needs to be updated.
Yes, and actually, I had a meeting with the town manager this afternoon, and we discussed this, and is very excited to have this back and forth dialogue.
Okay. The second issue that's come up is how appointments to boards are handled. The language is very needlessly dense for some reason, in terms of how many days for what has to happen, and then there's a grace period, and then there's a whole other thing, and then, so we're looking to do kind of a whole rewrite of it. Just make it very clearly that this is how the process works for each of these positions, whether it's a appointed committee or whether it's an elected board. And then the other issue that has popped up since we last met is when you have multiple write-ins for the same board and the seats are won by the same person, there's not really a mechanism in the existing bylaws on how to handle that. So,
Technically, from Mass General Law, specifically for us, in Abington, you can't hold two elected positions. And especially when it's on the same board. Hypothetically, let's talk about, if we're talking about the Water Commission. You cannot, so there were two open seats for the Water Commission, an individual won both those seats. It is then up to the candidate to choose which seat they prefer, and obviously the person then would pick that seat. According to Mass General Law, then as for the other seat, if there was somebody who had the second most write-ins, it doesn't automatically go to that person, according to Mass General Law. So then after that, it is considered a vacant seat, and so actually, I believe it was posted this afternoon. It's on the town website for the vacant posts, which then at a future meeting, the Board of Selectmen and whatever board it would be, in this case, the Water Commission, will have a joint meeting where we then appoint somebody who was an applicant.
yeah. And it certainly raises an interesting question if you had an agent of chaos running for 5 different seats,
Right.
and they were popular and happened to win all 5 seats, then that just, there's nothing preventing that,
Yeah.
which is interesting. I don't think it would happen, but I mean, I never thought you would have a write-in win both as well, when he clearly only wanted one of them.
Right.
So that might be something else we have to look at, just in terms of how that all plays out. So,
And the other thing I've always wondered about, when you have these joint meetings between the selectmen or select people, persons, and whatever.
That's another discussion we
Yeah,
need to
well,
have as well.
Yes. And whatever, like the water authority, if there are 3 on the water authority and 5 on the select people, then select people win. But if it's converse, and I've always wondered about how that works, because you may have 2 distinct, and the fact that all the select persons only have 5 people and that's it, okay? And some of these committees have multiples, and thus it makes it more, I guess, the selection of the person, to me, I don't know, unfair in some respect, because one board or the other will have the power.
so
I'm assuming they all vote in unison, but
I was reading your, what was it, the review summary tracker, and I believe, was there something in, I believe, for that?
Yeah, we have
exact
proposed language
instance?
about
Yeah.
having to have, well, the order of who makes the nominations, and then also having it be a majority vote of both boards to make the appointment. So if it's like the library that has 9 and you have 5, you have to have the majority of both, or if you have 5 and I don't know, whatever has 3. But that's some of the proposed language we've discussed.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if,
the other interesting note is that technically there's no language that says if you have a joint meeting of the
Right.
Board of Selectmen and, say, the Water Commissioners, who's actually chairing the meeting. So you two could have 2 concurrent meetings going on at the same time, vote for different candidates, and not actually acknowledge what the other board is doing at that time. It doesn't say that the chairman of the Board of Selectmen shall be considered the chair of the joint meeting.
yeah.
So if you had a really difficult, library board, let's say, the library could nominate its own person, you can nominate your own person, you have 2 separate votes, and you still don't resolve it.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, no, and
clarification.
actually, it's, in recent years, we've had to do those kind of meetings a
Yeah.
lot lately.
Yeah.
There was one, I believe it was
Health
last year, Health Department.
Health Department, Conservation,
Yeah.
had to do it, water,
And actually,
sewer.
for the health, it was split. It was between us and the Board of Health.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody else.
that's
we
what
wanted
brought it to
somebody-
my,
Yep.
So I think that does need to be updated.
And it's even, who makes the nomination? Because if it's just whoever shouts the loudest first, I'm not sure that's the best policy. So,
Correct.
we feel that it might make the most sense that the committee with the opening makes the first one as to who should join them, and then, but you still need majorities from both boards to accept it. But again, this is another issue where we would love to have the Board of Selectmen, since this affects the Board of Selectmen specifically, their feelings on how to proceed, posting requirements, what happens if nobody gets appointed, does it have to be reposted for another 15 days? Can you take the same slate of candidates? That we've had that question pop up.
Yeah.
So we'd like the board's feedback on that too.
Okay. All right, so I can get that for you. I can get the feedback from.
Again, by the September 1st-ish deadline would be
September 1st.
amazing.
Yeah, I can have that for an agenda item in June.
Yep.
Perfect.
And then there's just a couple of things we've been working on is formalizing the volunteer appointment process in terms of, all right, you're joining a board, now what? And right now, the process is kind of like you just show up for a meeting. But we're thinking it would be good to have a process in place where if someone new is joining a committee, they get a copy of the ethics, they get a copy of open meeting law, they get a copy of the board rules, they get a copy of the bylaws, they get the stuff they need, like an onboarding process. Just so that they can't later say, well, I didn't know. We certainly had one of those issues as well. So
Yeah.
it's like, let's make sure that they have all the information they need. And we're setting them up to succeed.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
I know, and to your point, the Conservation Commission has been doing this lately, where they've laid out when a new person comes
Yeah.
onto the commission, that, okay, this is the training that you need to take.
Right.
And granted, that's fantastic for them, but it should be across the board, for all the boards, commissions, and committees that we appoint.
So where it gets complicated, of course, is, I'm on the planning board. You can't tell me what to do. I'm separately elected.
Yes.
I hope, and we try to take, professional development meetings as well.
Yeah.
But if we don't, can't do anything about it.
True.
But you certainly can take that into consideration when it's the conservation, zoning, open space,
Correct.
whatever. So how do we treat that differently, though?
Yeah.
But, I think one of the things we're looking at is, it at least needs to be noted, if you've taken professional development, keep a file down in town clerk's office, and if somebody wants to know, has this candidate for elected office done anything to further their knowledge while they've been on the board for the past 5 years? There's a file that says, yes, they have completed this course, they have done this, this, and this. And if not, that's something they get taken into consideration as they vote. But at least it's documented somewhere that, they've taken 3 citizen planning training courses, and they've taken the state ethics, they've taken the open meeting law, and they've done all this. So. I think one other question that came from your board was residency requirements for town board or committee members. So this isn't for elected, but this is,
For the appointed.
let's say summer concert series, that, someone moves out of town but still wants to be involved. Could they be appointed to the committee? Or cultural council, or something else? Is there a way, should there be a time or any flexibility that someone who's not a full-time registered resident of Abington be considered for a post like that?
That's something I could ask to get the consensus from
Yeah.
the board. Because I know we had tried to do that through our selectman handbook.
Yeah.
But town council came before us and says, you cannot do that. In order to do that, it has to be a charter change.
Yeah.
I will have to get a consensus from my board.
Yeah, I sometimes hate black and white questions because there's always an interesting option that comes up, but, you know, I certainly understand that both ways. Anything else we want to bring up that?
Those are the big ones, right?
Yeah. So, those are kind of the big things we'd love some assistance on. Perfect. Specifically that affect your board. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are. All right, perfect. Other than that, I think that's all we got for you for today.
That works for me. No, so I will converse with my board and see if we can get you some consensus from us on these specific topics with the budget process and the appointment process as well. And if there's anything else too, please let me know, and I can make sure that's on our agenda, so we can discuss and get this to you as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
Trying to think. But again, just thank you for everything that you are doing. This is it's a thankless job, but it needs to be done, and thank you so much for doing this and taking the time. We really,
Appreciate it.
truly appreciate it.
Most appreciated. All right. To continue on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our language has been sent to town council.
Okay.
They're still in the middle of town meeting, town election hell. So I don't expect to hear much back until June-ish, when things start to tamper down.
Yeah.
But it has been sent, I'll follow it up, but I mean, they're right smack in the middle of town meeting
Okay.
season, so.
How much language did we send? Just basically the spreadsheet, or?
No, there's a document that we've sent around, I can send it
That
around
one?
again, that
Okay.
contains about a dozen
Yeah.
or so
Okay.
articles that we're kind of looking at.
Right.
By no means the final version, but
Right.
more just, this is kind of where we stand, can we start to get some thoughts,
Okay.
best way to proceed, et cetera. All right. Any other thoughts on people's heads right now? Okay. Why don't we look forward to our next meeting sometime in June?
I know we just talked about this. So we posted the vacant position, and we have to post it for 2 weeks before, okay,
2 weeks, and then it's the moderator's appointment.
all right.
So he can get advice from someone else if he wants to,
Right.
but it's his soul as the
Okay.
Speaker of the House, so to say. June 22nd?
That's good with me.
Yep. Same here.
All right, 7 PM.
And we think by then we might have possibly something back from council.
I'm hoping.
Okay.
At the very least, get everything else kind of nailed down.
Yeah.
To the extent we can.
Okay.
Ideally, by September, having a full slate of suggestions.
Right.
Have them review through the fall, and then by January 1st, we have our
Action.
docket.
Okay. And then after we have the docket, public meeting about what's on the docket, and
Yep.
we'll go from there. Okay.
A specific hearing about it, I mean.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm not expecting a lot of this to be considered
No,
controversial.
it's not. Most of it isn't, right.
But,
It's a lot of cleaning up.
yeah, it's more just a lot of proofreading, copy editing. Sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
All right. I will take a motion to,
Do we want to
Oh.
do the minutes, or?
we Swain Silveridge is here.
Yep, good. I'm sorry.
All right. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Nope. Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.